Hi everyone, it's Tanya with Riley and Company. I am here again today with another coloring video. We are going to be working with our Christmas 1 dress up set. Now you may be wondering, what is all this over here? Okay, I color a sheet when I get it, stamp it all, and then I color it and I put it in a binder, and then when I want to use it, I color copy. That way you don't have to color all the pieces and they're always ready for you. Now this set is CLR 10, our Christmas 1. And it's very, very simple. Takes just a few colors to do. So we are going to start with the greens. Now the only two greens that I use to do this is YG07 and YG09. Super easy. So let's just get started. I'm going to give the little elf boots my little base color here. This was one of the very first sets that we started with the Dress Up series. And for those of you that don't know what the Dress Up series is, it's like our old dress ups that we had when we were kids, paper dolls, except with much, much cuter animals. Now you notice I'm going around the outside first, and then I'm using little circles to color in, okay? And I'm going to show you that one marker can give you several different shades. So I'm going to give it another coat here, if you will. And then I'm going to come in, and there's going to be more shading under here, so I'm just going to add a little bit more in there and add a little bit more and around the back. And so we're going to do the same for this little guy. And you can use this set to dress up any of the animals. All right, we're going to do the same over here. Just add a little bit under there and a little bit more under there. Just a little bit there. Okay, now let's go on, and we're just going to go ahead and do all the green at once. So I'm going to make this little hat this color. Give us some good color. And then I'm also going to do the stocking in the same color. You're going to be amazed at how quick this set colors up, because there's not too many colors that you need in it, and it goes really quick. Now see how I did the whole outside? I'm just going to come in and fill in with circles. And the reason is that when you use straight lines, all right, it tends to, and I'll show you over here, if you go like this, you can tend to see your lines if they're not even. If you go in with circles, it fills it in so much better. Okay, now I'm going to do, let's see, the outside of this and the outside of this. Now when I do little teeny tiny pieces like this, I am barely touching the paper with my marker. Barely. I can't feel it touch. I'm putting zero pressure on it. I'm just touching it to the paper and bringing it down. And then I'll just use my circles to fill in. We're going to bring it up on this side and around the top. And here's a little hint for you. I'm doing my red last because red tends to bleed really bad if it's touched with another alcohol color. It's the only one that I've found like that just every time you touch it, it's going to bleed. So I'm just going to go grab just a little bit more color and give it a little bit more shading under there. Okay. And there'll be a little bit of shading under the arms, of course. All right, then we are going to do our holly. And again, very, very light touches. And even as much as I have colored in my life, I do go outside the lines accidentally. And I'm going to show you how to fix that in just a second because I've already done it. Now with our dress up set, we do have the dress up animals that go with it, of course. But some of these images can work on any animal that you have. See how I'm bringing in a little bit more color, a little deeper? Now I'm going to bring a little bit more color here and under the bottom. Just to shade it a little bit with the same marker. And I'm going to come back up here. Just a little around the bottom. Okay, now I'm going to show you something real quick. Let me see. Do you see right there? Let me see if I can get it focused in there. I went a little outside the lines. Sometimes that doesn't matter. If you're going to use a die, it's going to cut it off anyway. But I kind of like to pay attention to that. Now this is the C00. I call it the magic eraser. And all you do, it has no color. All right. All you do is just use it and push in like you're pushing the color back up inside the line that it was with. And it just disappears for you. Really easy. I got another little one right there. Okay. Really easy. You can also use it as a blender if you've got a couple colors that you want to blend it together, but I rarely do. But I always have it when I color as my magic eraser. Now, my second color, YG09, I'm going to come in, and this is what's going to give me my really good little shadows in here. And people tend to have the hardest time trying to figure out where to put their shadows. I like to do them around the edges, okay? But if you're standing like this, typically the light's coming here, and this is where the shadows are going to be. So you just kind of have to think, if you were standing, where would the shadows be on this? Just like that. And we're going to give it a little bit more right there. Now here, of course, the collar is laying on top. So there's going to be more shadows here. I'm going to bring it out just a little bit around those little bells, okay? It's going to go under the arm, of course, and down the side. Down the side. In the very bottom, I'm just going to use this one color. Again, very, very light. All right. And a little under this arm. Now, when you do something like this, you tend to see it a whole lot better, right? It looks kind of not blended very well. All you have to do with that is go back to your original marker and just do your circles around the edge. And it's going to blend beautifully for you. Okay, so let's do the same thing around our little stocking. All right, and this time we are going to put the shadows right here because we're thinking probably the top of the hat is going to be the part that you're going to have the most light on. So I'm going to take my original marker and do just some little circles in there to get it to blend, and some circles right here. Okay. And then on our holly leaves, we're just going to pull it out from the center. Just kind of feather it out. Flicking, I believe, is what some people call that. And that's all we're going to do. Now, we're going to do a couple of the lights on here, green. So I'm just going to do this one. And then I'm going to do this one. All right, I'm going to come back in with my YG09 and give it a little shading. There we go. Pretty easy. Now we have the green done. Okay, so let's move on and do some, let's do some red. We can go ahead and do the red. Now I have 2 shades of red for this. You could use one if you want, but I have R27 and R29 for this, okay? So let's use our R27 first. We'll start up here with the Santa hats. And you be extra careful with your reds, because like I said, they tend to bleed. So if you go outside the line and you try to get them in with that magic eraser, it's a lot tougher. I'm not sure what it is about the pigment that's in red, but it can be kind of a pain. All right, the nose on this set, all right, is colored in for you, so you're going to want to stamp it in red. So let's just take some of these lines on our candy cane, and I'm really not staying within the lines. I'm just doing imaginary stripes is where I think they would be. If you have a fine tip marker and you want to do the stripes, that's just awesome. I use Copics, and they tend to have a chisel on one end unless you grab a different type, but I use Chows and Sketches. So we have that, and so now let's go do the Santa suit. And I'm just going to go very carefully. Oh, my apologies. That's horrible, isn't it? Turn your sound off before you start, Tanya. Sorry about that. Now that I've got all of that taken care of, now I can go back in and do my circles. And of course this marker is wanting to be a little dry on me. So I'm going to come in down here and do the exact same thing. And just be very careful when you go in there, because we're going to add color later and we don't want to grab the red. Okay, that's the first base we're going to lay down. Now we have the top of the elf hats. I think I'm going to do those with a little darker red, and all I'm going to do is put a little light base on the Mrs. Claus suit, her little dress with her apron. While I'm coloring and trying to focus, it's very hard to talk when you're doing red. Because you can tell I'm focused, right? All right, now I'm just going to do that top because I'm going to come back in with the darker red anyway. I'm going to come back in and I'm going to use this light color on a couple of these ornaments. And one of the reasons that I like Copics a lot is because they're refillable to begin with. And you don't have to throw them away when they're dry. Okay, and I'm going to do these little berries down here just because I want to add some deeper shadow with those. Okay, So that's all I'm going to use the red for. The R27 red anyway. Now I'm going to come back in with my R29. And I'm going to go back under here and add some shadows. And I'm going to go along that line and add some shadows. And then right under the belt, because there's probably a little bit of a shadow under there, but I'm going to color in this whole bottom piece. I'm going to do a little bit right here, a little bit right there, and under that arm, and right under that arm. And then we're going to come back in and do just a few under this collar. All right, now if you notice, it's a pretty harsh difference, right? All we're going to do is come back in with the red we used before and just do some circles, and it's going to help blend that right out. And it'll give you a beautiful shade. Okay, now we're going to add a little bit of R29 up here underneath the hats. And only in the bottom where it falls over. Come back in with this marker. Just blend it out nice and pretty. And then all we have left to do with the red is I'm going to do these two pieces. So we're going to be uber careful and come in under here. And again, this is so light, I can't even feel the tip of it touch my paper. Okay. And we're going to turn this around and do the other side. Copic markers, not only are they refillable, you can also get replacement tips for them as well. And I found that quite handy when I've let one dry out and the tip gets really hard. Sometimes it just doesn't want to refill like I want it to. So I always have a pack of tips ready. Okay, we're going to take our original marker and come back up here and just do circles. Isn't that amazing how it does that? Just blends it right out into a beautiful, beautiful shadow. And then the last thing we have left, I'm going to make my elf hat a dark red this time. You can make it light red, you can make it pink, you can make it whatever color you want. Now when I do this, here we go again, right? So just the lightest touch. Okay, now I'm going to take the same red though, and I'm still going to come back in underneath here and do a little more color, and that will shade it with the same marker. Okay, I'm going to come back to these little ornaments, put a little bit of shade, or not ornaments, lights, put some shade on it. And this, I'm going to put some on my little berries. All right. We're going to come back here and finish these off. It's amazing how almost this whole entire set gets done with a red and a green. So if you only had one red marker and one green marker, you could do almost this whole entire set. So let's put some stripes here. Like that. Put some stripes on his sleeve. Okay, then then we're going to turn it upside down. And I like doing this because my tip can go in here easier than it can trying to come this way. So I tend to mess up less. If I can do it that way. Okay. Then we can do the little elf booties. And again, if you have any animal in your collection of stamps that is about this size, you can certainly put little elf booties on it. It doesn't have to go with just the dress up. But the shirts and the masks and stuff are all created to match the 6 different characters that we have now. By the time that you watch this, we may have even more than 6 because we've got some in the future. And there's that. And finally, we have that. Can add a little bit more shading in the corner here, a little bit more here, and a little bit under here. And I do believe we have all the red that we need. So let's move on. I'm going to show you how to make white look like white, but just with a color. I know that sounds really strange, but C1 is a cool gray. Okay, that's what I'm using right now, a C1 in Copic. All right, and if you use it sparingly on something that you want to appear white, just as a shadow, you will actually make it look more white. Isn't that strange how that works? But it really truly does. So on the Santa hat, we're going to come in, and instead of just leaving it stark white, we're going to give it some shadows. Okay, his beard is the same way. So we know Santa's beard's white, but we want it to look white, not look like we missed it. So I'm just doing this extremely light gray around the outside. And here's where the colorless blender can work for you. You can take this gray line. Can you see this gray line? It's a little harsh, right? So I'm going to take that and soften it up with my colorless blender. It's not going to add any color to it, but it's going to give the alcohol on my first marker something to blend to, which is a colorless alcohol. We're going to do the exact same thing with the little snow pieces, or the little white pieces on his boots and his gloves. We're going to do the same thing just down here, okay, just along the bottom of her collar. All right, and I think we've got, oh no, we missed this. There, just along the bottom and along the collar. It's amazing how quick this is going, right? It's just basically red and green. Now we're just going to throw in a few more colors. Let's use our pink, and I chose a really sweet little RB10. I use this pink a lot to do this apron. So I'm going to come in and be very careful not to touch that red. Do my circles. Throw a little bit more with the same marker along the outside just to give it some shading. Okay, and let's see. We do need to grab one of your greens again, it doesn't matter, and just do a couple touches to put the holly on her shirt. Now let's grab a yellow, and I like to use Y18 a lot because it's fun to shade with. So I'm going to make my ornament here yellow. All right, and this little bell here is going to be yellow, and let's do a couple of these lights yellow. Okay, then that was Y18. So now I'm going to grab my Y38, which is a perfect blending for the Y18, and I'm just going to come back in, and it's going to give me some really great shading. And when you shade circles like this, you always want to go in a sweeping motion around the outside, like you're doing sort of a crescent moon, okay? And that will help that. Now we are getting there. Oops, and I forgot some. Now I'm going to use this darker color, and I am going to do his little belts and the buckles on these. And I am going to come back and do my little bells on his outfit this color. And here's a bell I almost missed too. And I'm going to do the bells on this little reindeer collar. Now this is the cutest little collar with the little antlers to put on Riley, or you can use it on Bert, and you can trim this collar down to whatever size you need it to be, which is really fun. Sorry, I needed a cup of coffee, or a drink of coffee. Okay, so now let's do the antlers. And I'm just going to use a Riley color that we always use to do Riley, and that is E33. And all of these dress-up sets have matching dies, because I can't imagine trying to cut this out. I am not a fussy cutter whatsoever. Some people find it therapeutic, and I am not one of those at all. All right, there's that, and let's go back up here, and we're going to do the collar. I've used this little collar on Tucker. I've used it on Smiling Bert. I've used it a lot. All right, so now we're going to take E35, and I'm going to come back in and start from the bottom and work my way up, and just a little bit like this. I'm not going to go to the edge, all the way to the edge. I'm just going to give it a little simple bit of shading. Shading does not have to be a difficult thing. Okay, and then I'm just going to do the underneath part of this, because that is the part that's going to have the most shadow. And I think I'm going to take my E35, had to look and see, again, and just give it a little bit more shadow in the very bottom where it would be towards its head. Okay, now if you noticed, I made a little boo-boo, so we are going to come back, little oopsie, and use my little magic eraser. All right, and see what it does? Completely takes care of it. And let's see, we just have a couple more colors to add to our lights. So let's grab, let's see, a blue. Let's go B04 and color in these lights that are left over. Now just for this color, I didn't want to add yet another color to the mix, so I'm just going to use the same marker again, and I'm going to come in and give it shading. And I believe we have it. Did I miss anything? I did miss his glasses. Now his glasses are going to be clear, right? So we're just going to take your C1 and just make it look like it's there. All right, and that is CLR10. That is the Dress Up Christmas set. And now what you're going to do is you're going to take this, and you can write down your colors that you used on it, like I did over here. When you do it, just write them down and mark it, just in case something happens, then you'll know what colors you need. But stick this in a book. I put them in clear sleeves in a 3-ring binder, and color copy the next time you need to use it. It's a really quick way to make a bunch of different cards. So with that said, that is the Dress Up Christmas sets, and this has been another Coloring with Tanya video series. I'll see you next time. Take care.